Hi, it's Peter Schiff. This is Friday, May 8th, 2009. What a week as far as the stock market. You know, a lot of the bulls out there, who of course have always been bullish and missed the downturn, are very optimistic now that the worst of the recession is behind us, and they're convinced based on the stock market rally. Well, you know, stocks were very oversold, and the fact that they're rallying doesn't necessarily mean that the economy is out of the woods. I mean, far from it. We still have a lot more downside. The worst is not over. It's yet to come. But as I've been talking about, what I really see happening ultimately, and maybe it's already started, is a race to get out of cash. For people to start to understand that there's more risk in holding cash than holding stocks. And even though we've seen a big run in stocks, you know, look at U.S. stocks in perspective to other stocks. I mean, the Dow is up about 30% in the last 2 months, which is a big move. Of course, it dropped, 50%. But look what's going on abroad. In the same 2 months, stocks in Hang Seng in Hong Kong are up over 50%. Stocks in Germany expressed in U.S. dollars, the DAX is up better than 50% in 2 months. Look what's happening to commodity prices. Look at oil hit a five-month high today. We're at about $60 a barrel. I think we can hit 70 soon and maybe back above 100 before the end of the year. Look at the surge we're seeing in gold stocks. And look at the weakness in the dollar. You know, I think all currencies are weakening based on excess money printing, but the dollar is weakening more rapidly now than most. I mean, ever since I pointed out that reversal in the weekly chart of the dollar index, it's been straight down. Today we're actually at an 82 handle. This is one of the biggest single down days I've seen in a long time in the dollar. Most currencies were up at least 2% on the day. The dollar index is now down better than 5% in the last couple of weeks. It's down better than 7.5% from where it was a couple months ago. And if you look at some of these commodity-sensitive currencies, like the Australian dollar, it's up better than 20%. New Zealand dollar is up close to 25%. Canadian dollar is up, I think, over 10%. You're seeing a lot of strength in these commodity-based currencies. And I think this is all because of inflation. And not because the U.S. economy is certainly in better shape than people think. Now, I do believe that the global economy is not nearly as weak as people thought, because I think once they get over the shock of losing America as a customer, I think that they can be fine being their own customers and consuming more of their own production without loaning money to us. But the U.S. market is still, I think, a bad place to be, and the U.S. economy is in trouble. Look at today's job numbers. When the economic numbers come out slightly less horrific than the consensus, they pop the champagne. I mean, we lost, I think, 540,000 jobs for the month, and we revised, I think, previous months to extra losses. But Wall Street is happy because we didn't lose over 600,000. Unemployment moved up to 8.9%. This was a lousy jobs report, but because it wasn't as awful as some thought, suddenly things are turning around. And in fact, if you actually look at the numbers, better than 100,000 jobs were added by government. Now, government jobs don't add to our productivity. They subtract from it. We have to support those jobs. Most of the government jobs were added in the Census Department. Apparently, we have to take a census in 2010. Now, I actually heard Mark Zandi, the chief economist at Moody's.com, who is highly regarded, who absolutely knows nothing about economics. He was on CNBC this morning actually talking about how great this was that we had to do the census. He said that he expected the government to hire over 1 million people by 2010 to do the census, and this is supposedly good news. I mean, hiring people or assigning the job of counting everybody up, we don't create any output. Those census workers don't add to our productivity by simply counting the number of Americans that there are. I mean, if we could really increase the economy or improve the economy by hiring census workers, why not just hire 2 million? Why not hire 3 million? Why not double and triple count? I've got an idea. Why not give all the census workers, instead of having them use computers, give them all abacuses. Let them keep track that way. Maybe it'll take 10 million people to do the census without using any electronics. I mean, it's all nonsense. I mean, if we're going to assign people to counting, to doing the census, that's workers who can't do something more productive. That's a waste of resources. I mean, maybe we need to do a census. I know the Constitution, I think, mandates it. But you know what? The fact that we have to do a census at a time when the economy is such a mess is not a good thing. It's just another burden that the economy has to bear. In addition to all the other problems, now we have to devote some resources to a census. But the fact that you can have an economist thinking that this is good news, that the government is hiring people to count everybody, I mean, this is sheer nonsense. We need people making stuff. We need to produce goods. We're in a gigantic hole. This nonsense that the government can get us out of the hole by creating phony jobs. Also, everybody is talking about these stress tests. These phony stress tests that people are saying are great. These things were reverse engineered. There's no stress there at all. This is the government trying to reassure us that their banks are sound. And they're trying to do it by pretending that they put them to the worst case scenario stress tests, which is nonsense. Also they're talking about now the criteria by which the banks can repay their TARP money. And I was listening to some people talking about the fact that the government doesn't want the banks to pay back this money if it means they can't keep making loans. So they don't want the banks to have to pay back the government and then they don't have enough capital to make loans. Well, the reality is if the banks don't have the capital, they shouldn't be making loans. You need savings. And if the banks don't have the capital to make loans, the government shouldn't just print up money and give it to them, so they should keep lending. They need to stop lending. That's what the market wants. This government interference in the market is part of the problem. I put up on my website a very good white paper about Obamonomics, and you can download it. It's free. It's on my website, but it explains how this works, and it explains how government interference in the economy actually makes the situation worse. And I've been talking about it, but here it's another perspective. But it's a good paper that's on the website Europac.net. Also, I was listening to another guy on CNBC. It's just amazing. This guy, Ron Insana, who used to be a commentator and then started his own hedge fund, Insana Capital. I think that he's since shut it down. I'm not sure. Maybe he's back on CNBC. But he was talking about inflation, and he was assuring the moderator on the show that inflation is at least 5 years away, that there's no way we're going to have this massive deflation and have to worry about inflation anytime soon. And that seems to be the consensus. Inflation is a huge problem. It's a huge problem right now. It's the reason that stock prices are rising. It's the reason that the dollar is falling. And in the short run, inflation is very intoxicating because as inflation causes prices to rise, people can misinterpret this as genuine economic growth. They see stock prices going up. They think this is real. This is all the result of inflation. Also, one final thought. I've been getting a lot of emails and people have been calling me, and I've had a few people stop by my office trying to talk to me about running for Senate here in the state of Connecticut. I know there's even been some websites up devoted to this campaign, and people constantly call my radio show when I speak. People are asking me, am I going to run for Senate? I've had reporters call me about this. And in general, I've simply said that I had no interest in the Senate and, I wasn't involved in any of these efforts or talking about me running for the Senate. But, a lot of people have asked me, and I want to give a definitive answer. In the past, I've said I wasn't interested, but I never 100% closed the door. So what I'm promising to do is I am seriously considering whether or not I want to run for Senate in Connecticut, whether it's feasible. I want to look at all the pros and cons. I want to, weigh the situation, but I want to come up with a definitive answer, yes or no, on whether or not I will run for the Senate. And I'd like to come out with that announcement sometime within the next several weeks. But I can promise everybody who's asked me about this, I am considering it. I am giving serious consideration to that possibility. I am making some phone calls. I don't know for sure what I'm going to do, but I do promise to come to a decision shortly, and when I have that decision, to make some type of announcement, and that will settle the issue once and for all. Anyway, thanks everybody for tuning into the video blog, and have a great weekend. I'll be back again next week.